Okay, more on the oxygen problem. So, in the ocean, the waves churn things up, and plus there's seaweeds and stuff. But in the ocean, the waves are churning things up, and it's helping to generate more oxygen in the water. When the tide comes in and it floods into the bays down by Indian River and Ocean City and places like that, that water is oxygenated way more than the water in the bay. Now, the water that's in the creeks, like Cornfield Creek off Magathie River or Marley Neck, places like this, Stony Creek, at low tide, that's the least amount of water, the least amount of oxygen in that water. As the water comes in, the heavier water, which I'm told is the saltier water, is heavier, and so it creates a current down low. And it's pushing some water, and it's going through other water, and as it mingles through, dilutes, the oxygen rises in the bay. So during the tides coming in, your oxygen levels are rising. Now, as the bay distributes this into the rivers and the creeks, they all get a higher level of oxygen. Now, here's the problem. In the rivers and the creeks, the fish and boats and all kinds of different things are doing ways of destroying this oxygen level in the water. And eventually, what happens is that the oxygen levels start to fall. Now, as they're falling, the tide's going out. So what you're doing is you're pulling this lower oxygenated water from the creeks and the rivers, and you're pulling it into the bay, where it's going to fall to a certain point till it gets to a low tide again. Now, as it's at that low tide, that is the time when the oxygen levels are going to be the least. And you have fish, oysters, crabs, everything. They're all using up the oxygen, and they have less of it, and they have less water. And so there's concentrated areas to where the oxygen levels, when the populations are high, and the crabs and the fish and oysters, to where the oxygen's being used, and it has to wait that 12 hours for the oxygen to come back in. So, we need to plant seaweeds, preferably in the rivers, creeks, and the edges of the bay, so that we can create oxygen. Back in the day, when the tide went out, the oxygen levels were very high because the seaweed that was everywhere was oxygenating less water. I mean, this is common sense, folks. If you have a plant that is oxygenating 1,000 gallons of water, and then you take a third of that away and you let it sit, and it's oxygenating now 666 gallons of water. That plant is the oxygen that plant creates is going to raise the oxygen level in the 666 gallons of water faster and higher than it would in the 1,000 gallons of water. Simple fact. Now, if a high tide comes in from the ocean, and the ocean is what's generating the majority of the oxygen now, if a high tide comes in, and then as it goes to low tide, and my creeks and rivers are full of seaweed, I am boosting the oxygen levels in the bay. The amount of water in the bay is less because the tide is down, and that water came from the creeks that has a bunch of seaweed in it, and the oxygen levels are high. so the bay's oxygen levels come up. Not hard to understand. Now what we have to do is stop listening to the bad science. I love oysters. I eat the crap out of them. Oysters need oxygen. They can help clean, no question. But the oxygen levels are the problem because we killed the seaweed as we migrated to the shorelines. Back when it was just the crabbers here, we were dragging things to make seaweed free channels so that we could use our boats. Now, seaweed's gone. Now, when we hit low tides, hot suns, and there's less water in the bay, instead of the bay being highly oxygenated, that's when our crabs and fish start struggling. That's when these algae plumes start going. That's when all these problems start, when it should be the opposite. We need to restore the seagrass in the bay. That's paramount. All right, please leave some comments, some ways that I can get in touch with you. We need to join together on this. I'm going to start doing it. I need pontoon boats. I want to cut a hole in the center of a pontoon boat. I'll show you the better plans, but I need other boats to help me. I need people to start adding to the plant life in the bay. It's important.